Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Peach Pundit Podcast. Jason Pye, joined by Buzz Brockway. Buzz?
Yo, what's up, sir? How you doing?
Good. We're Scott Turnerless this week.
Scott Turnerless.
Which is, no offense, Scott, always a good thing. I'm kidding.
One less thing to hate.
But Scott has to be upset because we get to talk about the latest Georgia political news, which includes the fact that Stacey Abrams is running for governor in 2022.
Yes.
She had the Atlanta Journal-Constitution broke the story today. Stacey Abrams says she is in, and it is as the kids say, next year is going to be lit.
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, she had a slick little video. I noticed that down the bottom it had a little disclaimer that some of it was filmed pre-COVID, so don't freak out that she wasn't wearing a mask, and urged people to follow CDC guidelines. And then she talked about all the wonderful things she's been doing for the state of Georgia since during her time as shadow governor. So,
one of my friends, Patrick Hedger, who works for the Taxpayers Protection Alliance in DC, said something along the lines of like, "Did she make any promises about her second term?" But no, we've openly speculated that she might not run for governor.
Yeah, and I have to go ahead and acknowledge. I was on the record saying she would not, and clearly I was wrong. So,
well, I don't think you're the only one. I mean, I think there was always the question. Here it is. It's December 1st,
right?
And a lot of us were wondering if she waited and continued to wait, like if she announced in February, would that be too late for her?
Yeah.
But here it is. We're coming up. It's 11 months until the election. She has probably cleared the field almost certainly with Michael Thurmond, as far as we know, was the only Democrat who was openly talking about running.
Yeah. Apparently, behind the scenes, Senator Jen Jordan was sort of telling people, "Hey, if Stacey doesn't, I will," but didn't seem to take any formal steps or anything.
Yeah, I mean but Abrams running and look, I mean, I think it's going to be a competitive race. I mean, I think it's if the trajectory of polling nationally stays the way it has been, even you see a couple point bump for Biden, that's going to filter down nationally. Because let's face it, even local politics is national politics at this point.
Yep.
Or national politics, I should say, is local politics at this point.
Right.
But that's going to filter down. That's going to be a bit of a burden for Abrams. But there's no denying that she can turn out her base, and her Fair Fight Action has a boatload of money it's sitting on right now to spend.
Yep.
But the the Republican Governors Association, outside special interests for Republicans, are going to come in to match, or at least cut into some of that advantage. Maybe not all the way, but they'll cut into some of it.
Yeah, and the director of the RGA sent out a tweet today saying we look forward to working with Brian Kemp to make sure he wins. So obviously a warning to those already running against Kemp and those who might run against Kemp that the RGA has picked a candidate in this race, and this is Brian Kemp.
Well, let's dive in, because that's the next topic on the list. Is does David Perdue don't? Is he gonna run? Because he's been talking about it for I was actually thinking about this yesterday before I even saw the announcement, that I hadn't really seen much out of Perdue in the past week or 2 weeks, and then I was wondering if the talk was still active. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution would have us believe he's still considering it.
Mm-hmm.
But with Abrams jumping in the race, knowing what's about to come Brian Kemp's way, if you're David Perdue, do you run?
I hope not. I don't think so. I mean, I think it would. We've talked about this before on the podcast. I think it means that you're going to have an incredibly bloody primary, two heavyweights with lots of political machinery behind them, going toe to toe, and no matter which one of them emerge from it is going to be a much weakened candidate, and you don't need a weakened candidate running against Stacey Abrams. So I think, despite Newt Gingrich's pleas a few weeks back and others, it seems like it would be foolhardy for Perdue to jump in at this point. But hey, I didn't think Abrams was running, so what do I know? I mean, he may go ahead and do it, and then then the whole calculation of this thing changes, and instead of being a state that leans Republican or as a toss up, I don't know what the people like the Cook Political Report would consider this race, but
Yeah.
That certainly would tilt the scales in favor of the Democrats.
Well, let me read the line from the Atlanta Journal Constitution story. Greg Bluestein, who is I think a friend of us all, he writes, former U.S. Senator David Perdue is seriously considering a primary challenge against Kemp with Trump's support. He's told donors and activists that he's tempted to enter the race because he fears Kemp will get trounced by Abrams next year. Several other Republicans have already launched campaigns premised on their loyalty to Trump, including former Democratic State Representative Vernon Jones. That's something that I think and there was a specific person's support that was mentioned in that, and that was Perdue. If he ran, it would be with Trump's support.
Right.
We also got to remember that I think it was just a few months ago that Trump effectively endorsed Abrams.
Yes,
and
true.
Yeah, so I mean, look, it was
fine with her if she wanted to run again. So presumably, there's champagne popping in Mar-a-Lago. So,
which is really odd because I think there's a fundraiser for Herschel Walker tonight in Mar-a-Lago.
Yes.
So
yeah,
but no, it's getting really interesting because if Perdue runs, if he runs and loses to Kemp, he's winking Kemp by potentially taking available resources away.
Yep.
From Kemp. He's also fractured an already divided Republican Party.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even really clear what he's running on other than loyalty to Trump.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, exactly. I mean, you look. If you're a Republican, what do you criticize other than the 2020 election and Trump? Yeah. What do you criticize Brian Kemp for? Our economy is doing very well compared to most other states. Our unemployment is lower than it was before the pandemic. There's some issues there. There's people not back in the workforce yet, but the economy's humming along. There's jobs out there for people who want them. Tax revenue is coming in. The state of Georgia is going to be able to do all sorts of things.
The one other thing,
hint, hint, maybe Kemp should give some of that back to taxpayers. That might be a nice election year thing to do.
Yeah, well, he's got a lot of promises to fulfill to teachers and so on and so forth. But there's a couple things. There's a couple things that come to mind immediately. This is a question I actually just thought of, but I'm wondering it out loud now. That given the fact that we're coming out of the pandemic, and given the fact that the power, Georgia has a very strong governor that is part of our constitutional structure.
Yep.
And we've seen in the past where Republicans will strip away the power of a Democrat who's in office. Mark Taylor being one of the most obvious ones. His office was legitimately reduced basically to a presiding officer.
Yep.
Of the Georgia Senate. So I'm wondering now, do Republicans get ahead of this early in the next session, or maybe even later in the next session, if they feel that Kemp is in trouble?
Well, I think honestly, there were conversations that went on all the way going back to Governor Deal. When I was in the legislature, there were people, myself included, who thought, some of this stuff ought to be restored to the legislature, given to the legislature, etc. And governors, no offense, not trying to pick on anybody, governors have always been reluctant to do that.
Of course.
To go along with that. So I don't know if Kemp would go along with that, but it'd be smart, just because, it is pretty shocking. It wasn't until the early 70s that the House of Representatives picked its own speaker and appointed its own committee chairs. So the governor, as you mentioned, structurally is very strong, and by tradition has been very, very strong in the state of Georgia.
Yeah.
And that's I don't think, just as a constitutionalist, that's not what the founding fathers type of system the founding fathers created at the federal level. And I would, as a former legislator, would love to see a stronger, more of a balance of power between the branches.
Well, since I mentioned this, I think it's I mentioned that Trump is hosting a fundraiser tonight for Herschel Walker, down at Mar-a-Lago.
You see, Ric Flair's going to be there.
Yeah, I did see he's part of the host committee. So I think that brings me to this clip that was apparently on, I guess that's Donald Trump Jr. I don't really know.
Got a triggered podcast apparently.
Yeah.
So this, I guess, to set this up, this came. We don't know the source of this. My guess is it's an opposing campaign to Herschel Walker, but it was reported in the AJC's Daily Jolt section. So
yeah, and this the other person, the person who's down at the far right, that is Congressman Burgess Owens from Utah. He's a freshman Republican lawmaker, really nice guy. I've actually had the privilege to meet him and talk to him a couple times, including once when he accidentally called me. But he didn't accidentally call. He meant to call me, but he didn't realize that I would think I was leaving. I think it was in my last week of employment at Freedom Works at the time. So, but this clip, Herschel Walker talking about the need to amend the Constitution. And hopefully you'll be able to hear it. Buzz, message me if you can't.
Okay.
Jay Donald Jr., let me say something that's going to freak both of you guys out. And I was thinking of
Are you running for Congress too?
No.
Oh, okay.
I remember I was just going to substitute why some of the leaders don't want to step in now, step in and substitute. But I was thinking society has changed so much. The demographic of America has changed so much. Is it not time for us to put an amendment on the Constitution? And what I mean by that is the Constitution was great for times back then. But I think it may be time to put some amendments on some of the Constitution because the demographic has changed a lot. And I think that may be the problem is we're trying to stay within that lines and it doesn't work. We have to change now with the demographic that we have that we're dealing with. And I think that is what your father is understanding, that he is changing this America the way it should be changed, meaning you look at the way what is happening, and that's what you have to go with, not what it used to be. You have to get to another distance now. So I think your father, that's that progressive thinking he has.
Wow. Where to start? I mean,
first of all, the notion that Trump has progressive thinking, I think is hilarious.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, I'm sure that word speak on a podcast called Triggered. I'm sure that will trigger a lot of Trump supporters that Herschel thinks that Trump's a progressive.
100%. The other part of it, the Constitution needs to be amended. For those of you who are
because of demographic changes. I mean, that's a weird reason to amend the Constitution. I mean, there's some constitutional amendments I'd love to see, like a balanced budget amendment, etc. But
the Constitution's been amended 27 times. Most recently in 1992, which was one of James Madison's original 12 proposals.
Yep.
For amendments to the Constitution. But the Constitution has been amended 27 times, and several times in the 20th century as well. I mean, but I think 14. I don't remember off the top of my head, but no, it wasn't 14. I remember how many amendments specifically were done. I know that the 16th Amendment definitely was, and everything from the 16th Amendment forward. But I can't remember. I can't remember the 15th Amendment and when it was done. But obviously, the 14th Amendment,
13th, 14th, right after the Civil War. Yeah, I don't remember when the 15th.
Yeah,
the 16th and 17th were in the 20s, right? The progressive era.
Right. The 15th Amendment. I'm trying to remember. Hold on a second. Now I have to know. I have to go look this up because this is gonna bug me. I'm guessing.
I'm sure.
No, this
folks listen to this podcast are nerdy enough, political nerds enough. They probably know already, and we're sitting here scrambling around.
This was This is one of the Reconstruction amendments. Yeah. So yeah, so yes, yeah. So it was ratified in February of 1870.
Okay.
So, but yeah, no, it's just it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of mind-boggling because he's been a candidate now for a couple months, right?
Yeah.
and here we are, and he's I mean, it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear he doesn't really.
I say that I'm not like, I am not a Herschel Walker. I'm not the voter that Herschel Walker is trying to appeal to. I'm not.
Right.
I like Herschel Walker mainly because he was a great Georgia football star, and I mean, his openness about mental illness is one of the reasons I've been more open about the mental illness I have, which is, I mean, I have generalized anxiety disorder, but in him being open about that, I think has helped. I know it's helped me and other people be a little bit more open about what we deal with. But
definitely.
But that's kind of it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, and it's not really even clear. It is just sort of rambling. What why do you need to amend the Constitution? Why doesn't the Constitution work anymore in his mind? That was kind of the more troubling part of the comment was, the Constitution was great for back then, but now the demographics of the United States have changed, and it doesn't. He's implying it doesn't work anymore. And I don't, what sort of amendment would he have the idea to do? I don't know. It's just kind of rambling, which is, I suppose, what his spokesperson, when they were pressed on this, he said, well, he was just spitballing and joking around with some friends, and that he's running for United States Senate now. You got to watch what you say. In fairness, I don't know when this podcast was recorded, when it took place. I don't know.
Sure.
But it may have been a while ago. But if that's what he's going to do every time he's pressed about previous comments that he's made, is he was just joking around. That, No,
I mean, it
doesn't make him appear to be a serious person.
No, and that's part of the worry. And is that you can't go out there and you can't laugh off everything. Oh, he was just joking around. I mean, that's right. Eventually that stuff's going to start to add up. Right. But I was trying to find his Donald Trump Jr.'s podcast, and I can't find anything on it, because I'm actually
not in the top lists of most listened to podcasts.
Nothing comes up. I mean, there's what Triggered hosted by Donald Trump Jr. It's that actually does make me think it's a little older, because he did say something along the lines, are you going to make an announcement for Congress? So that makes me
sort of referred to, referring to Trump as if he were still president. So it could be a little while ago.
Yeah. So this, according to Facebook Live, here, it looks like this came out about a month ago. I could be wrong. I'm not saying that definitively.
Okay.
I'm not saying that definitively. But there are no. This actually looks like it came out a lot longer ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It looks like this might have come out. There's an episode of Triggered that came out in June of 2020.
Okay.
That has Herschel Walker and Burgess Owens.
That might be the one, and of course that makes sense. That puts it in context of, Herschel seeming to be talking as if Trump were president at the time.
Right. Yeah.
So
no, that would make a lot more sense. I mean, it's a little bit more forgivable. I think at that point, it's still embarrassing, but it's a little bit more forgivable. But still, yeah. Speaking of Congress and all the Congressy things, redistricting has seemed, it means, I wouldn't say has shuffled the decks a little bit. We know that Rich McCormick, who ran in Georgia's 7th congressional district in the 2020 midterms against Carolyn Bordeaux, is now running in the 6th district, which is a very crowded field, featuring Jake Evans and
Megan Hansen. Yep.
Yeah. And
I mean, both. Yeah. Two candidates who've been running for a while, raised some money and got people lined up behind them. And McCormick, McCormick ran in the district that I used to live in, the 7th at the time, and ran a very strong race. Was pretty close, and I think part of what's motivating him to do this is Forsyth County, which was a big chunk of the 7th. That is all now in the 6th, and McCormick, having run very, very strong in that area, obviously now he's got a lot of potential voters who know of him, and know where he stands. So, and he came out. I didn't see the list, but he came out with 28 or so, 26, something like that, claiming to have endorsements from 28 or so members of Congress, including 5 Georgians. So that's pretty strong. Opening salvo there.
Yeah, and his list is not insignificant, at least in terms of a couple of the names. He's got obviously some Georgia members. He's got Congressman Jim Banks, who is the chairman of the Republican Study Committee. Mm-hmm. He's got Congressman Jody Heiss, Congressman Darrell Issa, and a lot of these names on here are House Freedom Caucus names, which tells me that the Freedom Caucus might be lining up behind them. Although there are a couple notable names not on the list who are Freedom Caucus members, like Andy Biggs, and I don't believe Scott Perry is on here. But Scott Perry being the incoming chairman, Biggs being the outgoing chairman. But he does have other Freedom Caucus members: Andrew Clyde, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Andy Harris, Jody Heiss. I think Ice is a member of the Freedom Caucus. Owens, I don't think is. Cawthorn is. Warren Davidson, who's a friend of mine, he's on this list. So that's a notable list, considering those guys are all Freedom Caucus members, and there are a couple of conservative. And I don't know how much to say it. There's a couple conservative heroes on here,
and I don't know how much cash on hand he has, but he's been raising money for a while now. So I think he'll come with a he immediately jumps into this right in the thick of it against these 2 other candidates. So.
Yeah, I mean, that primary is shaping up to be one that's going to be really interesting to watch, especially given because Megan Hanson's name recognition. She's been a pretty much state representative, pretty much consistent figure in Georgia politics for as long as I can remember, at least. She
has quite a few endorsements of current and former or current House members. Quite a lot of support there.
But obviously, you can't overlook Jake Evans, who's I mean. As I think I said this on the podcast before, but Jake Evans, who I've never met, don't know him, seems to be the front runner in this race, and that's because obviously his father but his father has brought in a lot of notable names, Newt Gingrich being probably one of the most notable.
And Jake, I know Jake. I wouldn't say we're close, but I know him. Had breakfast with him a few times. Didn't really expect him to be a full-on Trumpy guy, but that's how he's running. So we don't know if Trump will weigh in on this race or not. But he's I would think would be running well among the Trump's most ardent supporters.
Yeah, and then of course in the 9th district, which is Northeast Georgia, basically Athens and up, Andrew Clyde is running for re-election in the 9th, which is where he currently is.
Well, I guess that's part of the controversy. Clyde's a little upset. His home county of Jackson County was drawn out of the district, or is not in the new 9th. His business is in Athens. That's not in the district anymore. And he's picked up Hall County and among other places, and me and northern Gwinnett County. So it's it's still a heavily Republican district. And includes a lot of where he currently represents up in the northeast corner of Georgia. So, but yeah, he made that official that he's running in the 9th district, but also kind of took a shot at the map drawers and said he wasn't really happy at his home county not being included.
Well, he wasn't the only one either, because apparently She Who Must Not Be Named also said she wasn't happy about it and claimed and. I'm actually pulling up the story now. Claimed that it's the moderates who are out to get them and all that stuff. So, it's certainly our friend in Georgia 14 has not done herself any favors in terms of winning over people and influencing them.
Yeah, one thing to point out about that Greg Bluestein had a screenshot of some poor guy who lives in Cobb County in what is now She Who Must Not Be Named's new district in kind of a Democratic part of Cobb County. And this poor guy his hair is disheveled and he looked, I mean, he was not having a good day. And I forget the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of, this is like being forced to move back in with your ex-wife who hates your guts. And that's kind of how he felt about it. And he looked as bad as he felt. This poor guy, really, this was weighing very heavily on him. That this She Who Must Not Be Named is his representative in Congress now. So, and it seems the feeling is mutual. She's not real happy about having these folks from Cobb County who might vote Democrat as in her district. So, but again, it's a super strong Republican district. All she's got to do is make it out of the Republican primary, and she's fine. So I don't.
And she's sitting on a boatload of cash too. I mean, right. that's basically what she does. She grifts. She goes out and raises money.
Right.
She says stupid shit and raises money. That's
so. What's the? Yeah. I don't. Not every constituent is going to like you, and if there are some Democrats who live in her district now. Yeah. I don't know. The Democratic population of her district might have gone up 1 or 2 points, and that's caused her to talk about moderates drawing maps on her, against her and stuff.
Well, I mean, there's also, I mean, Greene, we've already said, has said some really stupid stuff, and has certainly made a lot of. I mean, I would go as far as to say she's made a lot of enemies. Clyde, I mean, Clyde his behavior has changed lately, as far as I can tell. But he after January 6th and the days after that, he also said some pretty stupid stuff. I mean, he's the reason that Democrats point to Republicans and say, "You guys call this a normal tourist visit." Yep. And that's he certainly rubbed people the wrong way as well. And the thing is, it's not because I know that the gut reaction of many conservatives, particularly conservative members who feel like they have a target on their back, is that, well, I'm shaking up the status quo. Mm-hmm. And it's a great line for fundraising. I get it. And there are certainly principled conservatives in Congress who have gone up to Congress and disrupted the status quo. Some of them have done it more, I would say, more obviously principled than others. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's these folks have gone up to, it's not just that they've gone up to vote their conscience, vote their district, represent their district. They're not, in Greene's case, she's not even representing her district. Yeah. But in Clyde's case, I think he's learned slowly how to become a member of Congress. Mm-hmm. That said, your actions and your words have consequences when it comes to redistricting, when it comes to committee assignments, when it comes to a lot of other different things. I mean, Greene can stay in Congress for 20 years. She's in that type of a district.
Absolutely.
Northwest
Georgia. So can Clyde. Yeah,
so can Clyde. Northwest Georgia will never be, and neither will Northeast Georgia never be, toss up districts unless they magically draw up from way up in Metro Atlanta.
There's only so many Californians who are gonna move here, So.
Right, but I say all that to say this: these guys, particularly Greene, if she wants to ever be an effective member of Congress, she has to stop now. She has to stop being herself now. Otherwise, she will never be an effective member of Congress. Her district will be underrepresented. If not, I mean, I would argue her district is not represented at all right now. Yeah, and
I think when it comes to redistricting, there are critics of these maps, that there always are, on both sides of the aisle, who don't like this or that about it, and fair enough, you can make those points, but in reality, Republicans accomplished what the national Republicans needed them to do, which is potentially pick up a seat in Congress. You've got Lucy McBath, who currently is the 6th district representative, is not going to run in the 6th district. She's going to run the 7th against this is playing out exactly the way Republicans could have hoped for in their wildest dreams. That Macbeth and Bordeaux are going to duke it out amongst themselves, and you're going to have one less Democratic congressman.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what national Republicans needed him to do. That's exactly what Georgia Republicans wanted to happen. And so, complaining about having a few more Democratic constituents ignores the bigger picture here. And I guess, in fitting with Greene's persona, it's all about her. It's not about what's the bigger goal here for Republicans, which is to recapture the Congress. And you do that during a year like this by all across the country as much as you possibly can within the bounds of the law, draw maps that favor Republicans. Yep. So that's what's happened here in Georgia.
Yeah. And then since we're on the topic of our friend Marjorie Taylor Greene, she who must not be named, I have done that multiple times today. Scott would be proud of me.
We're trying not to name her, but it's
yesterday morning at 8:10 a.m. Greene tweeted out, Nancy Mace is the trash inside the GOP conference, never attacked by Democrats or rhinos. Same thing, because she's not a conservative. She's pro-abort. Mace, you can back off of Lauren Boebert or just go hang with your real gal pals, the Jihad Squad. You're out of your league. Obviously, so I'm reading. I'm not showing this on screen. A couple of grammatical errors here. Rhinos.
The wrong your.
She spelled you. She said you are out of your league. YOUR, out of your league. And she also made rhinos a possessive when it should not have been.
Right.
Plural. But so Adam Kinzinger replies, honestly, the your thing is funny. It's really bad way to end this tweet. Now we all see that you just can't spell. And of course that tweet led to a series of barbs being traded between the two, where apparently they were called into the principal's office yesterday to talk to House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. I think they were called in separately. I can't remember if they were called in together. Mm-hmm. I think separately. And Nancy Mace, as she was leaving, said, "Bless her fucking heart." Which that is an exact quote. It's apparently
good for her.
Apparently, what she told. I haven't seen video of it. That's just what reporters had tweeted out and said that she said. And I mean, this is coming on the heels of Greene just had a conversation with McCarthy. After delivering some remarks on a podcast where she was questioning basically whether he should be the next speaker. And
yes.
Then she tweeted out that she had a really good call with McCarthy and really, it's just like, but here she is again, not even a week later and having the exact same conversation.
Yeah.
She can't keep her mouth shut. And I'm not saying
weren't there were reports also that Greene stormed out of the meeting with McCarthy and then immediately started attacking Mace again.
I hadn't seen that yet. I hadn't heard that, but I mean, look, Nancy Mace, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, is a freshman lawmaker. Nancy Mace is the first female graduate of the Citadel. She's also a former Atlanta resident. She lived in. I had a conversation with her a while back, and she told me that she lived in Metro Atlanta I think she lived in Atlanta for several years, working here. But she's and look, she won a district that Mark Sanford had held, that Joe Cunningham, a Democrat, won because Sanford lost in the primary because of Trump's endorsement of another candidate. And Mace beat. It's
in South Carolina, right? I guess.
Yeah, it's South Carolina's first congressional district, which is basically Charleston.
Yeah, the Low Country.
Low Country, and Mace beat Cunningham, took the district back. And she's come under some criticism from Trump because I think early on after January 6th, she was very outspoken about her disgust of what happened. She voted for the referral for prosecution for Steve Bannon. So those are things that have not won her any favors with conservatives. My understanding is she already has a primary challenger, which Greene has apparently said that she's going to support. Greene said that Trump and she will both support Mace's primary challenger. And look, I mean, those are threats that no member takes lightly, but just the same, Greene, this is another example of Greene, not exactly making friends and influencing people.
Right. Yeah, and it's Greene seems to fancy herself as the heir apparent to Trump, which a lot of people would line up and claim that. Um, among the back and forth, with Mace, she tweeted that she had called Donald Trump about Nancy Mace, and had Mace took some shots at that and said, "Boy, you can't even you go running to the principal's office when things don't go your way, and you can't even stand on your own." So yeah, I mean, this was a serious fight, and it seems to me to imply that Greene is rogue. Greene's just going to do whatever the heck she wants to do, whether it's good for the larger conservative or Republican movement or not. It's all about her and enhancing her power and flexing her muscle to go over there and mess in another district. That used to be something that did not happen. That caucus leadership would frown upon it, more than just frown upon it, would take action against members who actively got engaged in other members' primaries. But it's going all over the place. I mean, obviously, Matt Gaetz is fomenting against Liz Cheney, and on and on and on, and against Trump has come out against all those who he deems unworthy, which is a long list. So. This should be a year. 2022 should be a year when Republicans kick butt and tape names, and all this infighting and stupidity might minimize that. What should otherwise be a really good year for Republicans.
The only good thing Republicans have going for them at this point is voters are not going to really start paying attention to what's happening in national politics until September, like after Labor Day. And that's when they're going to start noticing this stuff. I mean,
right.
The only people who are really watching this are the people who are involved day to day in politics, like us. So this is not really going to matter. But if this kind of stuff is still happening come after Labor Day next year, and look, I've said this before, that Greene's going to be she's going to be in campaign ads for Democrats. Mm-hmm. She is
no doubt.
She is going to weigh on the Republican ticket. Or on Republican candidates, particularly Republican candidates in competitive districts.
Yep.
So I mean, that's something that whether I don't know whether she realizes that or not, because she's in her own little world,
right?
Up in Washington D.C. and her constituents apparently are okay with this. We'll see in May whether they are or not. But it's something that at some point. And look, I think Republicans are very likely to take back the House.
Mm-hmm. They only got to pick up 4.
Yeah, right. based on redistricting and the number of Democrats who are retiring. Yes, Republicans are very likely to take back the House.
Yep.
But stuff like this is what causes a margin to shrink.
Right, and it's not because, look, as you mentioned, Jason, Marjorie Greene, that her district is not in danger of flipping to the Democrats. Nancy Mace's district is highly unlikely to flip to the Democrats. That's not where it's a problem. Where it's a problem is in moderate districts, and there are those out there. The nation is not at that polarized where there are no swing districts, and that's where it's a problem. Where a moderate Republican in a swingy district suddenly has ads swooping in with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, who's, I guess we should mention that all of this fight between Mace and Greene was a spillover from a fight between Lauren Boebert and Ilhan Omar, the Democrat, saying Boebert saying some very offensive things and refusing to apologize and getting to a shouting match with Ilhan Omar. And of all the Ilhan Omar is one of the least sympathetic members of Congress, who she has said all sorts of anti-Semitic things. And they've turned her, Greene and Boebert have turned her into a sympathetic figure. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, this is a spillover of that. And this kind of stuff can, as you mentioned, hurts these moderate swingy districts where now suddenly they have to answer for these sorts of idiotic things that are going on with these fringe members of their caucus.
No, it's something that I hope, I mean, I'm sure McCarthy, well, I mean, I think the fact that McCarthy, has had multiple conversations with Greene tells you that he realizes this is a problem. Yeah. But you really don't want to be having these same conversations or having these same stories coming. Get it out now.
Yeah.
It's in some ways it's a blessing that it came during the holidays because, obviously we just had Thanksgiving, we're turning towards Christmas. But it's one of those things that if you're still having these conversations at this, around Labor Day of next year, if you're still having these sorts of stories come out, and the good news for Republicans, the congressional calendar came out yesterday. The month before the election, they're in recess. They don't come back until mid-November. So, that's at least they'll be away from each other at the time. But, just the same, you have government funding deadlines. They're going to come up. Tempers are going to flare. There'll be gotcha politics. We'll see the gamesmanship that we usually see around government funding deadlines, which, by the way, there is one this week. There's one on Friday, and there's very much an open question whether they get a short-term CR done. But originally they were saying it was going to be a week to 14 days. Now they're saying it might dip into January. So we shall see. But I got to tell you, man, it's I don't get to work on all these issues anymore, but it's really fun. It's really fun to kind of watch how everything plays out right now and sort of the drama. There's a really interesting thing mentioned yesterday that a little preview of my newsletter for next week. Somebody I know had said that Democrats were well behind the pace of Republicans on nominations. So I went and looked it up and just to see if they were right. They're not necessarily behind the pace. So the Senate confirmed 889 nominees between January 20th and November 30th. 86% were confirmed by voice vote. At the same point in the previous administration, the Senate had confirmed 873 nominees. 87.8% confirmed by voice, which means you don't do a roll call vote. There's a consent agreement and they get them done.
Yep.
But the thing that's interesting about it, that I found so interesting is at the time during this point in the previous administration, so you're looking January 20th, 2017, November 30th, 2017. There was, and this is a quirky Senate rule that most people aren't going to understand. That's fine. But when cloture is invoked on a nominee, at the time there was 30 hours of post-cloture time that had to run out, divided equally between the two sides. That rule was changed in April of 2019 for most nominees. They lowered it down from 30 hours to 2 hours. So it doesn't apply to
really speeds up the process on controversial nominees, right?
Right. It doesn't apply to nominees on the level one of the executive schedule, executive calendar, or executive schedule, which is defined in 5 USC 5312. It doesn't apply to Supreme Court nominees and it doesn't apply to Circuit Court nominees, but applies to everything else. So
it's a whole lot of people.
And you're looking at this and you're going, wow, because I took out armed services nominees because what I ended up doing, I took out all armed services nominees because most of those tend to be the vast majority of those tend to be confirmed by voice vote.
Right.
There's only a few here and there who actually are subject to roll call votes.
Right.
So excluding armed services nominees, the Senate has confirmed 261 nominees between January 20th and November 20th of 2021. That's only one ahead of what was confirmed at the same point in 2017.
Yeah.
So it's you have so much space cleared ahead of you to confirm nominee after nominee after nominee.
Yeah.
And you're not doing it.
Right.
And it's just I find that really interesting. It's this sort of thing. It's the sort of thing in politics. I mentioned that talking about Herschel Walker and the constitutional amendment, and obviously the sort of drama that's being done inside the House Republican Conference right now, not just between Marjorie Taylor Greene, but Madison Cawthorn and others, and Matt Gaetz and others. And it's pretty interesting what you get to do when you're looking at the ins and outs of Congress on a daily basis. But no, I mean, we'll whether when we do the podcast next week, which I won't be on next week, but when we do the podcast next week, when you guys do it, it'd be interesting to see if we have a CR in place, how long it runs for, and whether they're going to take up the Build Back Better Act, because the rumor is Schumer wants to take that up the week of December 13th, and that means Congress could be there literally until Santa comes.
Yeah, well, I mean that's just the latest deadline, right? The Build Back Better has had numerous deadlines.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's still there.
I mean, the question is, does Schumer put it on the floor without having that all 50 Democrats behind him?
He can't. I mean, there's going to be zero Republicans support it.
Well, I think the question is more, does he know if 50 Democrats are behind it? Because if he puts it on the floor and he has questions about Manchin or Sinema, more specifically Manchin, because I think he's the bigger question mark at this point.
Yeah. It sounds like Sinema, I get, my reading of her comments, she does not want to fight this out in public. So she has expressed her opinions and thoughts to Biden and his team directly, and is not going to be fighting it out in the press. Whereas Manchin seems to be more willing to express publicly what it is his problems are, various problems with the bill. So
yeah. Well, I think that's all I have. You got anything else?
Well, I suppose we can talk a little bit about the fear and loathing that's gripping Atlanta, because as we speak right now, baseball that does not have a collective bargaining agreement. The negotiators have gone home for the day, which means at midnight, I guess it won't be a strike or a lockout, more of a work stoppage, or so to speak. So
I think it actually technically is a lockout.
Yeah. So. But teams could still, athletes can train and so on and so forth. But for us in Atlanta, when are they going to sign Freddie Freeman? That seems to be the question that's on all Braves fans' mind. And are the Braves really going to be so? Is Liberty Media, to be more specific, going to be so stupid as to win a World Series and let the heart and soul of your team walk away because you won't give him the money that he wants to stay in Atlanta?
A couple quick points on this. So MLB Trade Rumors, which is a site I read when I want to know what's going on in baseball, at least in terms of contracts and deals and things like that, reported that the sticking point between the Braves and Freddie Freeman was a 6th year. The Braves were offering 5. Freeman wanted 6.
Yeah.
They were offering $135 million over 5 years, and which Freeman rejected. But apparently that's what's keeping Freeman, I think, is 32. So he'd be 38 at least by the time the deal expired, which is old.
Give the man his 6th year.
Listen, I am not arguing. I am not arguing with you. I think that, look, Tom Brady is not the only professional athlete who's defied age. I mean, there were plenty of including baseball players who were productive well into their 30s. Although some of them were using performance enhancing drugs, but that's neither here nor there. But Freeman has shown consistency. He's shown that this is not some player who had like a one-off year and hit 300, hit 30 runs, drove in 100 runs, and then that was the anomaly year. The problem, I think the complicating factor was always Marcell Ozuna's contract. Because Marcell Ozuna is he's on the hook. We're on the hook for him for $16 million.
Yep.
Freeman's commanding anywhere between, I think I don't remember what the math was on 5 years for $135 million. But that's I find out real fast. I can't. Apparently can't do math. My calculator is not working. So that's Ozuna, his legal matter, I think, has been largely resolved. He was given a 20. So they basically said he could be reinstated. He was given a 20 game suspension, which has already been served.
Right.
So he can come back and start playing at spring training next year.
Yep. And so here's the question. I mean, this is what I guess the Braves are going to have to wrestle with when it comes to Ozuna. Now the video is out. TMZ on their website has the video from the cop cam, and I watched it. People can draw their own conclusions about it. Door is open. Officer comes into the door. Immediately there, right kind of in the living room, is Ozuna with his hand on his wife's neck. And there's another dude there. I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
A big guy, almost as big as Ozuna. Officer says, immediately, get your hands off of her, get down on the ground. He complies with it all immediately. He complies with everything, and then she is the recording you can see later. She is pleading her case with the officers. It's in Spanish, so I didn't know what was being said. But and then they handcuffed him and arrested him and took him in.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's he's agreed. The charges have been dropped in lieu of him participating in some counseling, some anger management, I suppose.
Yeah.
Sort of a diversion program. And as long as he abides by that, the legal case is over. But how's this going to play in the court of public opinion? What are Braves fans going to think about that? He's a big guy. He's a professional athlete. He's a big, strong guy who has his hands on his wife's neck. His one hand, because he had the cast on the other hand. Had his hand on his wife's neck, and that's a bad thing. You never put your hand on a woman like that.
Yep.
So how is that going to play, and what do the Braves do? Seems to me trade options are limited. Getting back to the money thing, which leads us back to Freeman.
He's due.
They're stuck with. It seems to me they're stuck with his whether he plays another game or not. They're stuck with his. Unless there's some sort of morals clause in there that would allow wiggle room out of that, they're going to owe the man the money.
My understanding was there was no morals clause. It was he is due $16 million in 22, 18, and 23 and 24. There's a team option for 25. At $16 million. With a $1 million buyout. But I think you're right. I think the trade market for Marcell Ozuna is going to be limited. And if the Braves are able to move him, and they did that a couple of years ago, and I can't remember the player's name who had a similar incident. I think they were playing in Washington, D.C. at the time, where a player had a similar incident of allegations of domestic violence, apparently bad enough for the team to try to move him. And they did successfully move him, but they had to eat a lot of his contract.
Yeah.
And I think that this is going to be the same case here, is that if you move him, you're going to be eating a lot of his contract. Eating a lot of his contract if you do move him. But if you can't,
on the flip side, Alex Anthopoulos has been out there publicly saying he will have more money available to him in as far as salary. So you would think,
Well, the problem is, it's the Braves have been putting out tweets and press releases about players they've signed. You look at the replies on those tweets, especially when are you signing Freddie Freeman? Mm-hmm. That's the only thing fans care about right now.
And rumors are that and it wouldn't be a surprise that the Dodgers, the two richest teams, the Dodgers and the Yankees, are very interested in Freddie, which will drive the price up for the Braves.
Right.
And what I hope is there's not been a souring of the relationship where Freddie feels disrespected. And
I mean, it's pretty interesting because I read the same thing today that the Dodgers and the Yankees had shown interest. There was another team, I believe, that showed interest. But you're coming down. I mean, I still think Freddie Freeman wants to stay in Atlanta. I still think he gives us a hometown discount to stay in Atlanta. But the question is, if the Mets come, or not the Mets, if the Dodgers or the Yankees come at you offering $33 million a year, do you turn that down?
Yep, for 7 years. Yeah, they give him essentially everything he wants and more. Whew.
Yeah.
I mean, look, he is what, 32. I mean, this will be the last contract that he signs in all likelihood. He's looking at this as, setting himself up for the rest of his life. Yep. And you can't. It would break my heart if he left, but you can't blame a guy for trying to maximize his money.
Nope, you can't. Well, folks, and hope you enjoyed baseball talk with Buzz and Jason. We hope you have a good rest of your week. We'll see you next week. Peace out. Have a good one, and go Bulldogs.
Well, maybe not.
No, go Bulldogs. I mean, I don't have a good feeling about the weekend, but I will stay. I'll still say go Dogs no matter what happens, and we're still going to the college football playoff no matter what happens. So
definitely,
I'll say go Dogs. And you're just upset because we beat the crap out of you guys last week.
Well, we deserved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, what was it? You guys lost in Notre Dame 55.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about this enough. That's enough.
Have a good week, folks.